Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Tony Lynch, who is the founder of the nonprofit Memories of Us, and he has the podcast called Grief. Let's talk about it. Tony had experienced such intense grief. He lost his brother, he lost his really young child, and then he lost his mother. And all of those events just took him into such a deep, dark place of grief. For 2.5 months, he planned his suicide to end his life and really carefully and methodically planned this. And then he found himself that day in the desert with his weapon in hand, ready to end his life. He didn't have the desire, the drive, the will. He didn't have any fight to live any further. And in that moment of this dark night of his soul, he realized that he no longer needed to be a victim of grief. He looked at all the moments in his life and what the grief was teaching him and how he could use this to help other men work through grief. Tony talks about how there are some similarities with the grieving process, but how men and women grieve really differently. And he is 100% dedicated to supporting men through their grieving process. This is such a beautiful story. Tony is absolutely amazing. If I was in a place of grief, Tony is the person that I would want to speak to. So I really hope that you'll enjoy this episode. Please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Tony. Good morning. How are you today?
I am doing well. How you doing this morning, Nikki?
I'm good. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the Connected Community Podcast and chatting with me today.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your platform.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about grief today. And I think that this is such a good topic and an important topic. But I also love that you work with men. And I know that men and women grieve so differently. And so do you want to talk a little bit about how you got into the work that you're doing and what led you down this path, and then specifically working with men?
Oh, well, that's an interesting story, So I got into it after the loss of my son, followed 2 years by the loss of my mother, which put me in a category of I guess no parents. Both of my parents are gone. My younger brother passed away, and the category that most people, there's no words for it, the child loss category. And the process that I went through, being a young male, I didn't even know what grief was, right? No one ever told me that this is, grief was part of life and things like that. So I kind of stumbled my way through the process. And it led me down a dark path where I planned out my suicide.
This was after
for 2.5 months.
After your son passed away, right?
Yeah, well, my son is what triggered it,
Right.
what started the process. And it wasn't until the loss of my mother where everything just kind of opened up and I fell straight into the hole. And I often use the analogy, I fell down this deep well with with smooth sides. And here I am looking for someone to come and rescue me, right? To at least tell me that, what I'm going through is totally normal. There was nobody out there to do it. So it led me to making bad decisions, which was part of the process, which I didn't even know, right? You see people who turn to drugs. I didn't turn to drugs. My addiction was working out. And so I had a model, I wanted to try to hurt myself as much as I'm hurting. So here I am, a bodybuilder, and I'm extremely strong. So one day I just put on almost close to 600 pounds on the bench, and I lifted it up, and it fell down. I was like, well, maybe this is my time. It's gonna suffocate me, or either break my neck or something. And something inside of me, I pushed it up, but I put it back on a bar. And then from there, I just started running. right? And that was this whole deep well that I was in. It felt like I was running forever. The choices I made, I left Colorado, moved to South Dakota, and what ended up happening, I went out there, and moved in with the female. Was there 3 months, lost everything, came back to Colorado, and here I am bouncing around on people's couches. Just it was a lonely, lonely, dark road.
Yeah.
And eventually I gave up. I said, I don't want to do it anymore. The pain was just there, and which led me to planning out my suicide.
Did you
And
actually have an attempt, or did you plan?
no, I attempted it. I planned it out for a reason. So I played, my friends are going to kill me when I say this. So I played chess with my friends, right? To the people that was still a part of my life. And what I mean by that, I noticed that they will call me on certain days, right? And so once I realized that they followed a certain pattern, I kind of disrupted their pattern. I stopped answering the call on the days that they were calling me, and I would call them on days that I wanted to talk to them, which left me open for a weekend. And once I realized that it was consistent, I said, okay, now that I know that no one's going to call me on the weekends, this is my opportunity. So I went to work as normal, didn't say too much to anyone, and no one really paid attention to me as well. So on that weekend, I got off work. My clothes were already in my vehicle. I took off and went to Utah. And I got a hotel room for a couple of days. I was like, I get out there on Friday. I'm going to take Friday night. I'm just going to rest. Saturday, I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to say my goodbyes, to my family, ask for forgiveness for what I'm about to do. Sunday, I checked out at a hotel. I was still in Utah, drove out to the middle of the desert and sat out there for a minute. And when nightfall came, my mind was made up. I had a gun, and I made sure that I was going to do it right. I had this thing planned out to the very last detail. I'm going to shoot myself. No one's going to come looking for me. I'm in the middle of the desert. By the time they even find me, there's scavengers, right? There's mountain lions. There's scavengers in the desert. By the time they even find me, there ain't going to be nothing else left. So, and that was my thought pattern. You're right. And when you're planning out your suicide and you get into that much detail, I've actually thought this thing through. There's that darkness that comes in, and you have to be okay with that.
It sounds like that plan was for, that went on for months. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, 2.5 months I did. When I thought about it, I was like, what's the best way to do this, right? I don't want anyone to find me, after the fact. So I'm not going to do it in the city. I know too many people. So I need to be away from people, right? And so I had paid up my car payments for months. I know they're not going to come looking for me. I don't owe them anything, right? And the biggest thing is that now that I know no one's going to call me over the weekends, I know there's, ain't nobody looking for me. They may start looking for me during the week, but they don't know where I'm at, because one person thought I was going one place, another person thought I was going somewhere else, but I just diverted. So that was 2.5 months of very, very strategic planning. And I just, again, it wasn't even a thought of dying. I was just tired.
Yeah.
I was literally just tired. Like I said, I lost everything. The pain was just immense. The thought of being an orphan in this world, my parents are gone, my younger brother is gone, my son is gone. I'm the oldest and the last of my bloodline. Life is not going well. Life is not going well. My company that I started, my personal training company, I just lost everything. I lost my place to live. I had no direction. I had no purpose. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was the sort of tired that if you were sitting across from me, I couldn't explain it to you.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain it to anyone. I just knew that I was done. I think that was just a a pile up of life, right? You know what I'm saying? My whole entire life, I had been, it's just been a consistent fight,
I know
right?
it just sounds like you just ran out of like fight, you ran out of energy, you ran out of like willpower. You just kind of like everything just kind of all the steam got let out.
Yeah, well, that and when you actually think about it, right? When you're in a physical fight, you know what your opponent is,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I've been in boxing matches, MMA, martial arts, street fights. I in a physical fight, I can handle this. I know exactly, you know what I'm saying, how to approach the situation.
Yeah.
When you're in that sort of fight that you don't know what your opponent is, you don't know, you're just swinging for the fences, hoping that you hit something. Eventually, it's like, what do I do next?
Mm.
What do I do next, right? And that's what led me. That's what led me down this path um, of trying to survive this so-called grieving process, and that I didn't understand. And like I said, the analogy, you know, here I am inside of this well. I'm looking for someone to come and save me. Tell me that things are going to be okay. And as I'm down here, I'm punching the walls. Trying to figure out something, right? Because this is unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening, and I use this a lot, as I'm searching for the answers, as I'm searching for something, it was as if someone would drop a rope down, and every time I went to go grab the rope, they would kick dirt on top of my head.
Oh my God. Right.
And every time, you know, and I would go, you know, shake it off and go, you know, if you're going to bury me alive. Go ahead and finish this, right? I'm done. I'm not going to fight, you know. And then it kept happening and kept happening. And now the dirt, this is what it was. It was the things that I needed in order to understand what I was going through. So it got to a point, reach for the rope, they pull it up, the dirt come down, I push it underneath my feet. Eventually I got to the top of this well. And that's when an aha moment happens. And now this happens, although it seemed as if it happened, you know, there was a long period of time. These were minutes that were going by, just
Right.
minutes. Because you got to remember, I'm in the middle of the desert. So, you know, and I'm 2 seconds away from pulling the trigger. And all of a sudden, here I am lost. So in that aha moment, something said, hey, let me show you something. And that's where all of that compounds. So things that it would normally take people years to figure out, I figured out in a matter of minutes.
Did
And
you
here I
actually have
am.
that visualization in that moment?
Uh-huh.
You were having that. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when you're in that hole, this is what I did. I said, you know what? I have no purpose. Why am I here? So in that moment, now I am going on a backwards journey in my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm pinpointing because now, you know, I have to know, why am I angry? You know what I'm saying? What is the source of all of these things? Why have all of these things happened? In these moments, I want to be a victim.
Right.
I want to be a victim. I want to justify what I'm about to do, or what I've attempted to do, right? And I can't justify it anymore, because now that I am going back on this journey of my life,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, what about this? What about when I was 6, when I was molested? Yeah, well, yeah, you was molested, but had this not happened, you would not have developed this sense of survival, which was useful in my life, right? Well, what about this? Well, had you not done that, had you not gone through this, experienced this, you wouldn't have been able to do this. Well, what about the times I was homeless? You wasn't homeless, I just moved you around. So all of these different experiences are happening in these minutes that I'm climbing out of this hole.
Are
And
you basically
now,
like, are you going through like your life timeline and thinking about
yeah,
all of the hard moments and then how you got through them and how they affected you and how they made you stronger? Is that kind of the process that you were going through?
I wasn't thinking about it was yes, but I was not thinking about how they made me stronger,
Mm-hmm.
right? What I was thinking about, again, you got to remember, I'm in victim mindset,
Right.
right? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to play the victim in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm going through this journey of backwards motion, I realized that I had to start healing. And I didn't even know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I wanted to go, you know what? No, what about this? Right? You know what I'm saying? What about the being homeless 18 times? What about going to prison for 5 years for a crime I never committed? What about being shot? What about all these other things? All the friends that I lost along the way, all the people I seen killed, you know what I'm saying? All the people I watched, struggle with addiction and suicides and all of these different things, right? What about me? You know what I'm saying? What about me? Right? What happened, you know what I'm saying? All these times I had to lose everything over and over, you know?
Yeah.
And life came back and said, yeah, it sounds good, but you could play the victim, but it's not going to work. And that's when the voice in my head said, you thought your life was about you. No, not at all, Tony. It was never about you. If you look at every turn, every challenge that you've ever had to overcome, I placed you where you needed to be. And I went, so you mean to tell me that all these times that I'm thinking that all of these people are leaving me, I'm the one leaving them? And it came back and said, you're the seasonal one. You're the one that's there in various points of people's lives to give them something from your experiences. And I said, okay. I said, well, what about now? Well, now we're going to take the next step so you can do something better. And that's when I got out of the victim mentality. And that's when I really, truly learned what healing was, because I had to go back to the 6-year-old Tony. And I had to become the person that I needed in order to heal from there. And then I had to pinpoint where everything changed. Then I had to develop and go to the next version of myself, and so forth and so forth. So that was the stage that I went. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting in my car and I'm going, whoa, I'm going back to Colorado. There was something inside of me, right? The book of Tony opened up. And that's when I realized that grief was my language. Grief had been my gift. And my whole mindset changed. And here I am driving back to Colorado, late Sunday night. I get back here and, and now I have all of these different things that are going on in my mind. I'm like, what is going on? So then I said, you know what? I need to go get support, because the next time I do this, I am going to be very, very successful, right? I've already made my mind up. And this is where everything started to actually make sense. And I got along the path that started me with the nonprofit world and working with men. So I went to a couple places that did support groups in grief and things like that. And I realized, everyone I went to, they was, even though they said, hey, men, women, and children are welcome, right? Every time I went, there was no men. Every time I went, I was like, Then it dawned on me, there's a reason why the men don't come. So I started asking questions just to make sure that I'm on the right path here. Don't ask me why, but I was. I was just curious. Hey, where's all the men at? Oh, we used to have men that came, and now they don't come anymore. And I look around, there's a bunch of women. I go, I now understand why the men don't come. This is not a space for them. When you put men in the same room as women, especially going through something like loss, there's a sense of vulnerability. Masculine nature says, I have to be a protector and a provider to the women and the children, no matter if they're in their life or not. It's our nature to do those things, which in turn, when we put ourselves in situations like this, we neglect ourselves. We shut down, because the last thing that we need you to think of as me as being weak. Right? Less than. So, and then when you put other men in a situation like that around women, it becomes a competition. That's the whole nature of the masculine energy. Because I need you to see me as a great provider. as a great protector. So this man over here, I need to compete with him
Right.
for a spot with you.
Right.
Right. And so when I started putting that together, I was like, oh, now this makes sense. So I just remember leaving a few of them. And I was standing in my buddy's garage. And this has been probably a few months after. And I'm going, you know what? I want to do something. I want to do something. My buddy goes, what do you want to do? I said, I think I'm going to start a nonprofit. I've never done anything like this before. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I think I want to start a nonprofit to help men like myself, you know? And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I'm going to do it. Don't ask me why, but I'm going to do it. And so it was another couple months after that. I'm struggling with this. And now I'm arguing with the voice inside my head. Like, are you sure that you got the right person? Right. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, you might need to go and check on someone else. I'm probably not the one. And the voice just kept saying, you are. Come on. Let me show you something. And after a lot of wrestling with it, I finally submitted to it. Right. And it became this natural thing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. But if I fail, let me walk away. I won't fight. I won't argue. I won't do anything. Mm-hmm. Just let me walk away and be at peace in my life. I'll disappear. You won't have any problems out of me. This is what I'm telling life. You won't have any problems out of me. I'll go find myself somewhere and I won't bother nobody. I'll be quiet and I'll live out the rest of my days till it's time for me to pass on. I won't cause any more problems. I threw my hands up. And the doors opened up and something just said, walk through the door. Nice. Once I did that, I started my nonprofit, which was Memories of Us. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to be dedicated to connecting with other men because I still have a lot I need to learn. I'm still a student in this, right? And I want to be around other men who have lost their children so I can learn what was the steps that they took in order to get through what they were going through. Yeah. And it reversed on me. Those men were coming to me. Hey, I need someone to talk to. Okay. I know how to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to listen and we're going to see where this goes. Either I'm going to tell you the wrong things, you know what I'm saying, and embarrass myself, or we're going to pull this thing off. Fortunately, I started pulling it off. The things that came out of me was something out of this world. And I didn't understand where it was coming from. I didn't understand the manifestation of my gift. I really didn't. I just knew that this information was there. And I knew that this is what I was going to do. And from that point, I gave birth to Memories of Us. And then COVID hit. And and during that time when COVID hit, everything that I was doing started moving it at a fast pace in the right direction. Yeah. I was like, okay. So then I started podcasting. I was like, there has to be a way to do this, right? Do more. And I began to showcase stories of other men and I've been walking this path very, very obediently since that time. So it's been a few years and it's been one hell of a journey. Yeah. Every opportunity, every amazing person that I meet, the things that I'm learning along the way, it's been truly, truly amazing.
Yeah, you found your calling, your path.
Yeah.
I always, I talked to you a little bit about this before. I was a hospice social worker for a while, and I've had a lot of death in my life. Nothing super tragic, like people died in order and things made sense for me, so it was a little bit easier. But I've always thought that when somebody loses a child, like that is a whole nother level of grief that is just, I've just seen it rip so many people apart. I think it would rip me apart. And I think that there's something about like when your parents die or when somebody dies in order, like they get old and they die in that way. It's very different than when you lose a child. So how do people work through that? And like, you've worked with a lot of people that have lost children and other family members, but I do think that there's a massive depth to losing a child. And then there's also this like spiritual component almost where you can't wrap your head around it. It doesn't make sense and it seems really unfair. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing that you have to understand, there's no natural order to life and death. It's what we
Mm-hmm.
make up, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that said that this is the way it's supposed to be. And we're not exempt from
Mm-hmm.
loss of children, right? This is just the way that we perceive it to make ourselves feel better when we lose our grandparents.
Yeah.
When we lose our parents and things like that, we go, oh, they lived a beautiful life, right? And this is just the way it's supposed to be. We tell ourselves ever since we listen to people that are older than us, it's just the way that's supposed to be. It's the natural order of things. The children are supposed to outlive their parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's the way that we justify moving through it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to hurt. We're going to grieve. We're going to mourn. We're going to remember them. And then eventually we come to a place of acceptance. Some a lot quicker than others, depending on the relationship that you have. When a child dies, it throws us off because everything that we've been taught, we feel as if we've been lied to. Now, if you can name me a place or a time in history where it says that we're exempt from this, maybe I'll retract my statement.
Right.
But from what I understand, since the beginning of time, people have been losing children. Hell, there was a time when people were having multiple children
Yeah.
because it was expected that they was going to lose a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They go, let's have 15 children. Now that at 15, we may have 5 that survive. It was a natural thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the modern day technology or medication or things that they have now to increase the survival rate of children.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like this is expected. Um, so when it comes down to it, it's horrible. It's the worst pain that you will ever feel, and I don't wish that on anyone. Does it? And it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in a lot of ways, um, you come to a place where you go, I want something better. I'm tired of this deep pain because you can't even explain the pain that you're in, right? And it doesn't go anywhere. It just leaves you empty because there's lies that we tell ourselves, and what I mean by that, and I mean no disrespect to anyone when I say this, but we tell ourselves we're going to be around, till they go to college, you know what I'm saying? We're going to watch them get their first house, grandkids, and things like that, right? So we set ourselves up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that you just have to go back and go, I get it now. I get it. The things that I thought was supposed to happen, it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go in and you have to check yourself. You literally have to check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that, you have to get out the side of your head and stop playing a victim. Doesn't make it easier, but you have to stop playing the victim. Life didn't just happen to you. These things happen to so many other people across the board. Since I've been working in this field, and I've met so many other men who have gone through a lot worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I I have a client right now who lost all 3 of his sons.
Oh my gosh.
I have another client who lost his son and his daughter to both the suicides, addictions, things like that. And I'm crying over what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
I need to look at that so I can be more effective in helping them work through what they're going through. So there's some skills that I developed along the way after that loss. And I began to search for a different connection because I began to think to myself, like, the flesh is dead, but there's something more to this. And so I developed a relationship, not only with my grief, but with the loss. And what it did, it brought me, and this is just for me, and everybody's different. but I developed a relationship with the loss of my child, my mother, my father, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings me comfort to know that they're still there watching over me.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious about when we talk about death of children, if there is a common theme of feelings of guilt as a
Mm-hmm.
parent, because I imagine if something happened to my kid, no matter what it was, obviously 99% of the time, it's not going to be related to that parent at all. I feel like there would be this sense of, what did I not see? What did I not catch? What could I have done? What could I said? Could I have been in this place at this time? Even though like logically in our brains, that doesn't make any sense. And we know better.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder about that guilt, and I wonder because that's an incredibly difficult one to get through.
Everything that you just said is absolutely correct, right? The what ifs. What if I had? What if I had did this? What if I had been in this place? What if, I would have been more attentive? What if, and you begin to play different scenarios over in your mind. Like did I do something wrong? Did if that kid has medication, did what happened? Right? You're looking for somewhere to make sense out of what just happened.
Yeah, true.
And it's hard to grasp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easier to find a place to take responsibility in than just looking at it and going, wow, life just happened. What
Yeah,
sounds easier? The blame?
yeah,
Because you might want to blame yourself, and you might want to blame someone else. Sometimes, like in my case, my son passed away from unknown causes. Who am I supposed to blame?
mm-hmm.
Who am I supposed to get mad at? I went through the guilt. I went through the shame because after that happened, I was going, I wonder what people are going to think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wonder how many people are going to avoid me because, you know, they may think that I was a horrible father. On the surface over here, you see me being this great father to my son. Now that he's passed away, I wonder if you're thinking I had something to do with this because I was a single father,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my gosh.
Um, we begin to put together different scenarios and justifying them. So then we become isolated, especially as a male. We become very, very isolated. My son's mother was around. And I thought to myself, she's going to think that I killed my son because I used to be a gangbanger, right? You know what I'm saying? But I've never hurt any women or children. I
Right.
don't know what she's thinking, and that can play a lot on your mental health. It sends you to a place of really, really deep darkness and
Yeah.
sadness.
Yeah.
You
Do you
know,
feel like everybody goes through that when they lose a kid? They go through that like guilt?
it's been, now here's the crazy part about it, right? Talking with women and talking with men,
Mm-hmm.
although it seems as if we go through things totally different, these
Mm-hmm.
are the things that are similar across the board.
Yeah.
The problem is that when men go through these things, it looks totally different,
Mm-hmm.
right? So perception. None of the emotions. In a lot of cases, men don't cry. We suppress that emotion, right? But we express it in a different way: anger,
Yeah.
isolation, irritability, going to work. You know what I'm saying? Doing things like keeping ourselves busy and things like that, pushing ourselves away from the family because we still have to have that role of being needed.
Yeah.
Whereas women go, "Oh, you're not grieving the way that you should," or you know what I'm saying. I don't think that you really cared, and all of these, and now here comes the back and forth bickering. You point the finger at her, he points the finger at you. This is very, very similar
Yeah.
across the board. Across the board, perception is reality. The things that men may go through may be perceived differently, um, depending on the person who's watching.
Yeah. It's like the inner world is the same, but then the way that it's expressed outwardly is very
Mhm.
different. Yeah.
So, yeah.
What advice would you have for people that are stuck in that phase of anger and guilt and grief and pain, and they just and they just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, like they're just in it?
What I normally tell people is that where you're at right now is totally normal. You're totally normal. Secondly, surround yourself with people who have gone through similar things. That way it's like finding your tribe, right?
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who've gone through similar things. You could tend to watch what they do, watch how they move. And it makes it more comfortable to talk about what you're going
Yeah. Yeah.
through. Find people that speak to you through your love language. So if your love language is touch or gift giving or things like that, surround yourself with people that can speak through you through your love language. It makes it a lot easier for that connection. Another thing is have patience.
Right. There's no timeline. It could be.
Yeah, there's no timeline.
Yeah.
Don't rush the process. If there's a process that you have to go through, inside of your emotions, outside of your emotions. You have to adjust to your new way of the world because the reality just changed for you, right? So having community is huge. And don't beat yourself too much for the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, in this grief world, a lot of times we get thrown into it from sudden things, and by the time you realize what has happened, it's already too late to learn about it. So
Yeah, it's so it can be so fast. It can be like everything is just status quo, and then the next day your world gets flipped upside down.
Exactly.
And that's very different than like somebody getting old and dying and on hospice, and you have like, months to say your goodbyes, and they kind of like their light slowly dims out versus just your life just changes instantly. Things can change in any moment, and we can't take anything for granted. Just our health and our safety and our community and like everything can change in a heartbeat. And so, gosh, I'm like learning this lesson now, and it's such a hard one, is trying to move through life with a little bit more flow versus resisting it. That's easy to say when I'm not talking about death, right? But just in general, it's like, are we flowing with life, or are we resisting every single thing that's getting pushed in our face? Because it seems like it's only when you get to that point of accepting that things are the way that they are and that we don't necessarily have control over everything, then it seems like that's when that shift can happen.
Agreed. Now, I want to add to that, right? You have to remember your days are chunked up in moments. Not every moment is going to be a good moment, but every moment is a moment that you can learn from, extract information, and move to the next moment. The key to it is when you extract this over here, leave that moment where it needs to be and not carry it over to the next moment. If you look at it as lessons, grief is constantly teaching you, right? It's teaching you what you need. It's giving you what you need in order to pass it along to other people along the way, because you've already gone through this. And you chunk your days up into moments like that, right? There's no such thing as a bad day. You just have challenging moments. Secondly, when you can begin to not take life personal. And have no set expectations from people or things. You tend to open up yourself to different opportunities of healing and education. Thirdly, learn how to be patient with yourself. Not take things for granted. And have gratitude for the life and the moments that you did have with individuals. You compound that all together, life becomes this journey. the story begins to change. You begin to change. The way you see life is already changed, but it adds a different sort of element to it. You begin to appreciate the people that you encounter. Like I said, I'm a seasonal one. I get that,
Yeah.
right? I understand my role in this life. I don't have any expectations from anyone, right? I understand that I move through.
Yeah.
I move through. The people that I encounter, I'm only there for a season. That's it. I'm only there for a season, so I don't have any expectations. I understand what trauma bonding is, so I understand my role in people's lives.
Yeah. I want to veer just to a question really quickly that's kind of in another direction, is that when you're going through your grieving process, what are some of the things that people said to you that were just did not land well? What are some of the worst things that when somebody's grieving that you could say that you don't want to say, that you want to avoid?
Yeah, the biggest thing is never tell someone that the person that they loved is in a better place.
Yeah, which everybody says that.
Yeah, and it's like that across the board, right?
Yes.
The second thing is never compare your loss to someone else's loss.
Yeah.
You don't know the relationship that they have with them, and your loss doesn't make your loss is not greater than their loss. It's the relationship that you have with the individual that you lost. Right. So never compare that, right? Because it's easy when you do that. The first time you go, well, you just now invalidated the person and what they're going through. So leave that out of the conversation. Be open to having a conversation, but be open to listening in order to listen and not to respond.
Yeah.
You got to know when to keep your mouth shut.
And so when somebody says they're in a better place, what does that do to you when you hear that? What does that feel like?
Oh man, that's a gut punch, right? That's definitely a gut punch, because when you tell me, matter of fact, this is when I had to learn how to stop taking things personally. When my son passed away, somebody went, hey, at least you had, 8 years with your son. He's in a better place and he's looking over you. And I looked at him, I was like, the place that he needed to be is right here with me.
Yeah.
Like, are we not thinking about, what I'm saying? Like, again, the victim mode. Are we not thinking about, what I'm saying, what it just did to this old man right here?
It invalidates your experience, actually.
Right.
Like completely, like, oh, they're in a better place now. It invalidates everything that you're feeling.
Yeah. Or here's one I've been told: you can have another one.
Oh my God.
Huh? No, I've been told that before, right? And I looked at him, I go, well, it's kind of impossible for me to have another one. They go, what do you mean?
Oh
I go, well, I can't have any more kids. He was supposed to be the last one.
But even if you could, it's like you can't replace anybody.
Right. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But now, see, you have to look at it from the other side of the spectrum, right? There are some people that go, you know what? Yes, I lost this one. I'm going to go out and have another one, because they're trying to fulfill a void.
Right.
Right. They go, maybe if I have another one, I can pour this love into them. I can give them the opportunity that I wasn't able to give to this one. They still honoring them. Don't get me wrong. There's no right or wrong way to do this, right? It's perception is reality. So, they just look at it and going, you know what? It's in my nature. I need to give this to something. I need to give this to a child. I'm meant to be a father. I'm meant to be a mother, and things like that. So it's all about trying to fill that void.
Yeah.
Or in situations like myself, the reality is I can't have any more kids.
Yeah.
Right. So what do I do? I have friends who have kids. I don't try to fill the void, but I try to be the best possible uncle, because everybody knows me as Uncle Tony. All my friends' kids know me as Uncle Tony, right? And so I go, you know what? I cannot replace the love that I have for my own child. But what I can do is that I can give you someone that can relate to what you're going through. And just maybe, I can give a little bit of something to you to make you smile.
Yeah.
Because in their smiles, they tend to share with me their memories of my son.
No.
And so this way I'm still giving back I'm still giving pieces of myself because they're going to remember the way I made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
and that's what this world is about. People always remember the way you make them feel.
Yeah.
And so you might as well make them feel as if they're important in this world, as if they're loved and thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that is the biggest satisfaction in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know from my own experience and from being a social worker as well, that some people just don't know how to handle death. Like it's not in their wheelhouse. It scares them. They just kind of freak out. And so what happens is common is that somebody will have a death in the family of someone that's close to them. And then their friends and family and community sometimes don't know how to deal with that. And it's uncomfortable and they avoid that person. And I hear that a lot. And so, how do we support those who have had loss in their lives? How much do we extend to that person so that we can support them and also meet them where they are at in that experience, and knowing that that experience can shift over time?
yeah. Well, the most important thing, you said right there is meeting the person where they at, right? The second thing is surround yourself with people that you can have the conversation with. It doesn't necessarily have to be family or close friends. That's part of that community, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the loss that you're going through, why not surround yourself with people who've gone through similar things?
Mm-hmm.
People that have normalized that conversation and just be a fly on the wall. Listen, right?
Yeah.
And then when
But
you're
again, the tendency is to pull away. I mean, you did it. A lot of people that I know that have gone through death do that. They just immediately pull away from that community and tend to try to manage it on their own.
well, the problem is that when they pull it away from a certain community, right? They're not in the right community.
Right.
They're not in the right community. So and I say this again: it's finding your tribe. You try
Yeah.
to go through it on your own, and we all have, right? You know what I'm saying? You go through things, and along that way, the people that you're around no longer fit the narrative of your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're trying to figure, because grief is one of those things that a lot of it you will have to learn and figure it out as you begin to go. And the reason being, grief is like your fingerprint, right? You know what I'm saying? It's so individual and so specific to you. There's certain things that what one person is going through is not going to help you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's okay to push away from people, to try to kind of stumble through it, right? You know what I'm saying? Because there's no right or wrong way to go through grief. You're going to hurt. It's one of those things that is natural and is a part of life. You're going to do it. As you
Yeah.
begin to move through it, as you begin to go through different stages of it, right? Pay attention to the people who are coming into your life.
Yeah.
Pay attention to them, right? Involuntarily. You can be walking down the street and meet someone and they're like, oh, and they just have a conversation with that you can relate to. They may not
Yeah.
know that they can relate to that you can relate to what they're saying, but they're there
Yeah.
to give you something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over a period of time, you begin to build up in the pain is still there, but then someone else comes along.
Yeah.
Then eventually, you got 4 or 5 people that you can reach out to, right? Having the conversation behind it is key to it, right?
Yeah.
And being around people that won't judge you for
Mm-hmm.
having that conversation. A
Yeah.
buddy of mine, he said when he was going through it after his son passed away, he did something that I never thought about doing, and I thought it was the most interesting thing in the world. He goes, I have all of these people, family, friends, and things like that, and I was going through it. He goes, and I called a grief intervention. And that's when he calls everybody that had been supporting him and uplifting him and speaking life into him that he had been pushing away, but he got to a point to where he was going, if I don't do something,
Yeah.
I am going to take my life.
Yeah.
He calls him up
Mm-hmm.
and says, I just need you guys to come over. And he
Oh.
sat there and he told them, he was real honest. That's
Mm-hmm.
another key to it. He was very honest about what he was going through.
Yeah.
Being that way, learning how to communicate helps other people know how they can effectively support us and walk with us. Because if you don't know, then you're just trying to guess it out, right? But
Yeah.
we know what we need.
Yeah.
We know what we're looking for deep down inside.
Yeah.
And that's just someone to say, I see you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to hit on something that you said really is about find your people, find your tribe. And
Mm-hmm.
I have had this like pretty big spiritual awakening this last year in 2023. It's just kind of been working through my life over the years. But what I did find was that I found like another community of people that supports me in every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And it has shifted from my old community into this new community. And like this new community, it just feels so warm and loving and embracing and accepting and understanding of everything. And so I want to like let people know too that our communities and our people and our tribe can shift. And I think sometimes we get into these patterns where we've had the same tribe for so long, and that, you know, sometimes we need to look and see if that tribe is supporting us in our life's journey. And having the courage to move away from it when it's not, and having the courage to move towards something new when it feels good and right and supportive.
Yes. And I want to add to that. So a lot of times when people get in certain tribes, right, and you begin to grow and develop and things like that, that place becomes a place of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Although deep down inside you're outgrowing it, and it happens in the grief world, right? You know what I'm saying? You will outgrow it. If that group is not growing with you, you will outgrow that group, or you
Yeah.
will remain stuck, right? And what I mean by that is that sometimes it becomes a lot easier to stay in a place of comfort and stunt
Yeah.
your growth than it
Yeah.
is to go to a place to where it's a little bit more scarier. You don't know because you're not familiar with the people that you're around. Now, this is the reason. This is the reason why you need someone that can walk with you, that can encourage you to move
Mm-hmm.
with your grief, right? You know what I'm saying? Because as you go through the stages of grief, so do you go through the stages of life in that
Yeah.
process. So having someone to walk with you to go, hey, I see that you're, kind of stuck right here. I've been seeing these other groups up here. Would you like to come and go see what's over here?
Yeah.
It's not a commitment or anything, but it takes someone to see you from the outside, right?
Yeah.
To go, let's go over here and check this out.
Yeah.
Don't No guarantees. Let's just go over here and you have someone walk with you, right? Because people are comfortable when they have someone to walk with.
Yeah.
And so that's how you eventually start to find your different
Mm-hmm.
tribes that you can relate to. Everyone has something that they can contribute to your growth and healing as you
Mm-hmm.
begin to go through this process.
I think um, something that would be a good to say to somebody that's going through a grieving process is, how can I be of best support to you? How can I support you in this moment? Versus what I've learned is not a good thing to say is like, are you okay? Um,
Right.
of course you're not okay. And I had a relative pass away, and he at the funeral, he's like, please don't ask us like if we're okay. And I had been doing that, and it made me think like, oh my God, of course they're not okay. Really, it's like, how can I support you? How can I be of service? How can I be here for you? What can I do for
Well,
you?
I want to add to that as well, right? So it's a matter of how you say it. Say, for instance, if I saw Nikki
Mm-hmm.
sitting by herself, avoiding other people, I know that there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's my approach.
Yeah.
It's my approach. I come over there and stand next to you and go, hey, yeah, it's been one of those days, huh?
Mm-hmm.
See how I'm opening up the conversation with you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that you're in a place of hurt. I know that you're in a place of surprise and, you know what I'm saying, confusion and things like that. I know it was a really good service and
Yeah.
everything. And that's when I could see, once I get that and I know that you're starting to feel a little bit comfortable with my presence,
Yeah.
I'm going to turn around to you and I'm going to embrace you and I'm going to simply whisper in your ear, are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because for
Right.
one, we're connecting, right? You've allowed me into your space. There's a sense of vulnerability with that. There's a sense of
Yeah.
how I approach this situation. And, you know what I'm saying, my engagement with you that allows you to be more open with me, because now you can hear my voice, not from afar, but from a place to where now, you know what I'm saying, you're feeling where I'm coming
Yeah.
from. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a
Versus,
now,
yeah.
right, because I've allowed you into my space.
Yeah. That makes sense. Totally.
So there's a sense of, oh, wow, okay, now that you're in my space, when I let you go, you're going to look at me and go, one or two things. You're either going to walk away from me, or you're going to break down and go, I'm not okay, because
Yeah.
I've just now validated that I see you.
Yeah. Well, you've opened the door too. So even if that door shuts in that moment, it can open later. You've
Right.
opened the door.
Because
Yeah.
now you remember the way I just made you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
You know, it's your delivery.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself, am I being open? Am I allowing this person into my space as well? Because it's a give. I'm not taking it away from you, but I'm giving what, you know what I'm saying? I'm giving you something that's open and
Yeah.
inviting. Right?
Yeah.
Human connection.
Mhm.
If you can feel this,
Yeah.
right? And you can feel the energy that I'm giving you, it makes it a lot more receiving.
Yeah. Mm. Well,
Yeah.
Tony, how do people like find you and connect with you? And let's talk about your podcast and all of your offerings and how men can get support from you if they're looking for that. Because you're such a great powerhouse of support and resources and information on this topic.
Yes. If you are a male and you are looking for support, you can find me two ways. You can find me on social media as Memories of Us. I do have support groups on there, but if you're in the Loveland Fort Collins area, I do in-person support groups and one-on-one consultations with men, and I do these
Mhm.
things for free, right? Um, my website is under construction right now, so we're going to be working on that. But they can also call me or email me. They can call me at 970-599-9917. They can email me at tolynch46@gmail.com. If they're looking for various other resources, I do have those available. So I have another network called the Global Grief Network, where I'm partnered with individuals from across the world. So our motto is that we don't want anyone to feel left out or feeling as if they're being neglected. So we have something for everyone.
Mm.
Um, Podcasts. They can find me on YouTube as I'm the host of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast, where
Mhm.
I share stories just like yourself, right? Amazing story, amazing people, and to get those stories out there, because our motto is that your story can be someone else's survival guide. I also do a new segment called, Let's Talk About It Wednesdays, where my guests come in and we talk about topics. We dive into topics. I do weekly panel discussions. I just started a new segment this month where I'm talking to couples who have lost children. So I'm
Mm.
bringing that reality out there. Next month is going to be something totally different. Um, we're in the process of starting a new tour called the Healing Through Love Tour, and working with actors from across the world. We're going to be traveling in the United States, sharing these stories, inspiring, and then we're going to do youth events where we're going to fundraise, give that money to the youth organizations to help bring necessary programs to keep kids off of drugs and off the streets, to give them a place where they can develop necessary skills in life, but also have a place to where they can be kids, swimming, camping, archery, all the things that
Mm.
we used to do when I was a kid, right? We want
Yeah.
to bring that back. And this is going to help rebuild our communities as well. Um, I have a book. It's called Relentless, and you can find that on Amazon. Let's see. There's actually something else. Oh, yes. So for the individuals who are looking for companions walking through grief, we do have a program that's going to begin launched in like another 3 to 6 months is when it's going to be finished. But we're training, educating, and certifying grief accomplices or grief buddies, people who can be
Yeah.
effective in the field of walking with you during your time of need. So all
That's
of those
awesome.
different things are coming
That's
about.
a lot of stuff. That's
It's
amazing.
been fun, you know. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I would encourage people to check out your podcast, Grief, Let's Talk About It. It's really good. You go really deep with a lot of your guests, and it's powerful. It's really powerful. And I
Thank you.
imagined if I was in a state of intense grieving, your podcast would definitely help heal. Yeah, you're
I
doing some good
appreciate that,
work.
Rachel. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for your time and your expertise, and I really appreciate you.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me on the show to share my story, and hopefully it helps out your audience. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nikkiyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.